It's been a long time coming. I mean, we've been talking about writing. We've been talking about the business for many, many years, blogging, vlogging, plays. You officiated my brother's wedding. We've known each other for a really long time. But I'm really excited for you right now. And it's a really great time for you right now. And just the reason why we're here, everybody, is because, he's got a really great film project that I've been able to see. I think it's great. I really love the concept, and we're going to definitely dive right into it. But Austin, when we talk about this film, what's the genesis of it? I mean, obviously there's some storylines here, us against the world. Life is hard, but I can take the pain, quoting from the song, and kind of the uphill battle. But how did this originate? What was the genesis of that?
The genesis actually is pretty simple. I was in graduate school at Emerson College. This is during COVID, so a lot of this stuff was, online. But one of our semesters, we had a class that was designated entirely towards developing a feature film project, and we had to pitch ideas. Like, before you could even sit down to write, we had to fully develop ideas and then pitch them, to the professor and the classmates and all that kind of stuff. So, the whole idea of having the idea and the entire concept set before you even get to work, was part of that. And I had these three concepts. One I was fairly strong on, and two I wasn't. And literally a couple of days before the pitch, I was talking to a friend, and he told me about this idea he had for a luchador who leaves wrestling to take up a career in country music or something. It was just this like idea he had that he wanted to shoot as a series of Instagram videos, and he pitched it as Instagram, like, little vignettes. And immediately I was like, this is way better than the three concepts that I've been like developing, And so, we talked it over and ended up pitching it to the class as part of my package. So I pitched 4 or whatever, and there were my 3 original ideas and then the luchador one, and everyone gravitated to the luchador story for the same reason I did. So I spent that entire semester, developing the feature with some input from Roland Esparza, who's the guy who initially came up with the idea, which was really fun because I was, I've been writing and developing stuff for a long time, and I was working at this, in this academic setting, and he was just kind of unfamiliar with it, you know what I mean? So just kind of developing an idea along with him was really exciting, because there'd be things where I'd push for, like, certain elements, like, this is what we need here, this is our inciting factor and our turning point and all the terminology, and he'd just kind of look it over and goes like, nah, it just doesn't feel right, and I can't explain why. So
yeah, it's kind of like being in a band, right? And not having that musical background, that technical, I can read notes, I can sight read. You have that guy in the band, but then you have the other ones. It's like, what? It's all about the sound, and that doesn't sound right. And I like the way this moves. Did you find yourselves just kind of going back and forth? You're on the technical, more academic side of it, and then Roland going off of the field?
Yeah, absolutely. Very much like, I put together that pitch, obviously, to quote, sell to my professor and classmates. And, one of the things that when you're developing an idea, even before you sit down to type or put pen to paper or whatever, is, making sure that you have some kind of, for me at least, some kind of like central dramatic question. I have a hard time just like sitting down and writing endless amounts of paper, or of scenes and hoping something happens. I usually have to have some idea of what the thing is fundamentally about. But ultimately, what we settled on, for the basic idea is that you can't be fulfilled unless you pursue things. It sounds selfish, but you can't be fulfilled unless you're in pursuit of things for yourself.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. I mean, obviously the name of the film is El Pavo Bravo, and the luchador, or lead singer, also known as Ruben, in the
mhm.
film is basically struggling with, you know, I wrote this song for you. It's what you want, but it's what they want. They want Pavo. They want this piece of, you know, this material that I've been known to doing for a long time. Yet I need to do stuff for me. I need to do my music, and just kind of go away and find my identity. And so that's kind of what you're talking about, as far as like, look, I can satisfy everybody else, or I could fulfill myself in this.
That's the gist of it. You know, again, it's a feature concept, you know, and the log line, which, you know, I've pitched so many times, is essentially after inadvertently killing his best friend in the ring, a legendary luchador leaves wrestling before the biggest match of his career in order to pursue his long dormant passion for music and win back his long lost love. Right?
Yeah.
That's the log line, right? But again, the central dramatic question around that is this idea of Ruben Giannis, you know, the El Pavo Bravo, is that in the feature he's a legacy kid. His father was a professional wrestler,
Right.
you know.
Right.
Even in the short, his nephew Tony is a wrestler. He's roughly based on Eddie Guerrero, you know, and the famous
Right.
Guerrero family.
Oh yeah.
And so he's brilliant at wrestling. He's gifted at every component of it, the physical, the mic skills, the drama development, but it was never something that he was passionate about. So he leaves you know, so in an effort to pursue music, he put out a novelty album, similar to like how Macho Man has a rap album, you know. And unfortunately, now the novelty album has tainted a genuine passion, and now he's pursuing it sincerely. And even the idea that you were talking about, where he has a novelty song that's familiar and has kind of entrapped him in that world, and he
Yeah.
writes a song for his, you know, unrequited ex-lover. But even the idea that we're exploring there is that he's doing that again for the approval of someone else, to
Yeah.
win someone else over. You can't be as idealized, or whatever term you want to use, your fully actuated self,
Mm-hmm.
if you're constantly working to essentially like win over or seduce other people. You know,
Absolutely.
it's an interesting component, because as cheesy as rom-coms are, and they get mocked often because most of them are quite terrible, you know. At their heart, they all tend to have the same kind. They all tend to have like the same core, that same central dramatic question, where, you know, you have the pursuer, which 99% of the time is like, you know, guy going to get girl or whatever, you know, and
Yeah.
she's not impressed by his muscles or his truck or his pickup lines or his clothes, or, you know, he tries every trick in the book, but only when he truly grows and you know, finds the best version of himself, is
Right.
she now, you know, attracted to him. And I joke about it, but it's my it's one of my favorite tropes in cinema is, you know, when the woman is leaving, or the object of affection is leaving, and he has to catch her on the tarmac or something, or go up on stage at a concert. There's always some, you know, huge, and then he comes out and he's idealized, he's fully realized, and he's typically vulnerable, and he lays himself out there on the line, and
Right.
he pours it out. And I love that moment, because the protagonist is so powerful, or whatever, you know, is so enriched at that moment, that there's always like a secondary character. It's like an old lady on the airplane, you know, who's like, "What are you waiting for, sweetie?
What are you
Go
waiting
to
for?
him," you know.
If you don't do it, I'm gonna go do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like exactly. Like that's such a. I mean, it's such an amazing trope. The idea is like, wow, this guy is so in tune with himself that everyone can feel it now. You know, like
Yeah, I'm
that's the
remembering that movie where the old lady on the train's like, "Go ahead, take a chance."
I think it occurs like in The Wedding Singer too. You know, Adam Sandler's on the plane and there's
Yeah.
someone who's like, he's like Billy Idol. Billy Idol's like,
Oh
go
yeah,
to
that's
her,
right.
honey.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
You know.
Ceremony
It's
over the loudspeaker and stuff, ladies and gentlemen, this is happening. But and
yeah,
you
yeah,
hit
yeah.
on a point there. I mean, like you said, like the majority of these rom-coms, and as cheesy as some of them can be, they still make a lot of money, man. I mean,
Hmm.
that's that. But see, here's the thing. Obviously, that arc, and I'm only privy to the short, which I appreciated that because it does it does leave unanswered questions, obviously, and the overall, I'm not being privy to the overall feature, but I like the fact that I can fill in the blanks. And what I did appreciate in the short, without giving so much away, obviously, is that it's not necessarily that happy ending that these typical rom-coms at that moment where that old lady's saying, "Go on, take a chance," and they get together and they live happily ever after, right? I mean, I love one of the lines where she says, "We should both not run away together." And I thought,
Yeah.
you know what? That's true, because here she is in conflict on her own, in her own right, in her own life, obviously. And boy meets girl, they fall in love. That's boring, obviously. But when we've got boy loves girl, girls married, um, time, history, they didn't fall apart, they splattered. So that's interesting to me.
Right.
And I really do like that. And so another theme that I saw, and I don't know, maybe it's me getting a little bit deeper here, but is there something about that creative person? In this case, it's Ruben or El Pavo, right? The creative
Hmm.
spirit, the person who creates, and you're certainly one of them. I can do that as well in my own right, but it almost seems like in order for him to produce this character, to produce this material, in this case for Cassandra, and he's kind of going into his own self, that he's got to be low. And so it's kind of scary, but personally, and maybe for others, we've seen in our industry, if you're a creative, if you're into music, writing, some of the people who produce their best material, they kind of do it at the most lowest points. So I saw that in this character for some reason,
Yeah.
and I don't know, is that something that you thought about?
Yeah, it's actually something I think about all the time.
Mhm. Me too.
You know, I try to be, yeah, I try to be productive consistently, and then typically, and I do have a nice, I've become better about that. Become more disciplined about like doing work more consistently, and I've seen a vast improvement over this long period of time where I would do nothing for whatever, and then something tragic would happen. I drink too much, and then I'd be like, this is the next big thing or something, and pursue it. I think it's a combination of like two things. I think typically when people are low, um, when they're in, we were talking about how vulnerability is such a strength, but I think when typically people are low, they have this odd kind of duality where they feel isolated somewhat. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
man, my friends know I'm in pain, but they don't like feel,
Right.
exactly
Yeah.
what I'm going through, or they got their own life, and I don't want to be a burden to them. So some of it is like self isolation, and some of it is just genuine, just working through our own issues. And I think oddly enough, that odd flip to that like duality of isolation is this idea of universality,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
it it's a common expression that's used a lot in acting and in playwriting and stuff like that. Is that if you can tap into some kind of personal, right, some kind of like person, if you can reflect something personal, but it's true and specific, then it will also become universal. So,
Right.
for example, like you can watch uh, whatever or read a book about whatever a father who loses a son. You know, I've never had a child, but I can identify with loss if that loss is demonstrated, you know, honestly and vulnerable, you know, in a vulnerable fashion. And to me, I've always thought that that's this odd kind of duality that I think typically is where some people think art comes from. It's like, man, I got this thing I got to get out into the universe. It's a universal feeling, but I'm feeling so alone right now. I'm so isolated that this is my only outlet to the universe. I know
Yeah,
it
I
seems weird, but
totally
that's
totally get that. And so you mentioned something, because I it's something I know I go through all the time, is that you mentioned I've got those moments where I'm not so creative. I'm not really doing anything. Like it's swimming in here. I've got these ideas, but I'm not
right.
really doing anything about it. You know, I'm not. And you're more disciplined now. But when you're not so disciplined, and in my case, life, kids, other things, right? And how many hours in the day, and I'm tired, and all this, but yet you're still thinking about stuff, yet not taking action on it. For me personally, that gets me down. And it's almost like I have to reach a certain point where I tell myself, dude, enough is enough. Get down in front of that computer and start putting it on paper, and getting something out there. Otherwise, you're going to go nuts. Does that happen to you?
All the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's just, I mean, it's probably not healthy, but there's a constant cycle
Yeah.
of like, would, you know, again, I've set some this, and then I miss, and then it's like, oh, the self hatred, like, oh man, you blew it. Don't let this become a cycle, and then it's almost like I start putting pressure on myself.
Oh yeah.
You know, like it's just weird to like recover. You know, it's like, oh, I missed yesterday, so today I'm going to do twice as many pages. You know, and it's just like, and it's just sometimes just, you know, reminding myself like it's not a competition with myself. You know, it's like, you know,
Right.
it's just what, you know, put something down today. I do usually again have a goal every day, and I used to do some, you know, I used to do page count. I'd be like, okay, 5 pages a day. I can do that. You know, especially script writing, it's fairly easy as opposed to like, you know, novel or prose or short story. It's just, you know, there's
Right.
less words on the page. You know,
Yeah.
so it's like
And you
five
keep your
pages a day.
structure, and you're almost filling it. You're following a template. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, exactly. And then you know, I sit there and it's like, okay, and again, I'll give you an example of the system I used to have. I'd have an outline, right, and every
Mhm.
step on the outline would be essentially 2 minutes of screen time. You know, so like 2 minutes of action, and then every step on the outline had what was dramatically occurring in the 2 minutes. So it wouldn't be like car driving. It'd be like something like Ron realizes whatever that he doesn't
Yeah.
like being a Weasley. I don't know, you know, whatever. Um, and so it'd be like, okay, today is the day where, you know, and I'd pick any random point, you know, on that outline and be like, let's write this out, let's fill this out. Um, and I used to try to like do a bare minimum page count, and now I've kind of settled on, no, let's just find what the actual like axis of that mini scene is. Just
Sure.
the same way that your entire narrative has, you know, a central axis or a central, like every scene that you put on film or on stage or whatever, it is, someone explained it to me this way, and it's always made sense to me. Is every scene begins in a stasis, and then that stasis will be interrupted and create a new stasis by the end. You know,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
has
That makes
fundamentally
sense.
changed.
Totally makes sense. I mean, I guess in my world, when it comes to like say children's books, I just went through it wasn't grueling, but it was a really, it was fun. It was almost like going to the gym and working out. There was a lot of effort involved and some heavy lifting. And thankfully, you know, my editor on this next project that I'm working on now, it was literally line by line. You know, I mean, forget page
Mm.
counts. It was line by line. It was syllables. It was flow. It was development. And, you know, not necessarily grammatical editing per se, but like development. And then of course, writing for illustration as well, painting pictures with your words to make somebody else's job drawing the pictures, illustrating a little bit easier. And so that was a process, and I'm happy to be out of it. I'm better for it. Absolutely.
Right, right.
Okay. Totally worth it. I mean, I hope to have him on and have a good sit down with him. He's in New York and he's awesome. But I get what you're saying. And so, you know, I think maybe the question is that how do we find that middle ground? Because we were talking about being low to be creative. It's like you got to go low to go up. And we have
Mm-hmm.
to identify where our lows are in our lives, whether we're depressed or we've just got so much stuff going on or outside things going on, like, I don't know, shootings and, you know, just the world, right? The way it is now. But and things affect us. But do we have to go so low, or can we just kind of, you know, here's that danger zone. We're gonna fly. We're not gonna fly the
Right.
hard deck right here, man. Like, to borrow Top Gun, here's the hard deck. And so we can't go below
Yeah.
that hard deck emotionally. Otherwise, we're in a bad place.
I,
Can we hit that area and start identifying, like, what are your red flags? Like, what do you look out for?
no, that's really great. I'll tell you this. There is something I learned from this because, like I said, Pavo was someone else's idea initially, right? And I
Yeah.
did a lot of the heavy lifting. I did the actual typing and dialogue writing, and he kind of provided feedback. And it was his baby. And there was a few concessions. We even had this thing where like everyone gets to die on two hills. You know what I mean? And that's it.
Mhm.
And then after that, we're so we would play those cards and stuff. Oddly enough, I think that was really valuable to me because that required me, even though I was in grad school, it required me to be accountable to somebody else, which
Sure.
I think is so weird. I was just sitting here talking about like how you have to be here for yourself, but I don't think I could have gotten there unless I was accountable to somebody else. And as odd as it was, because not every idea in that text was mine,
Hmm.
I became really my central focus was about executing that idea as best I could, as opposed to this kind of introverted. Um, this is my work. This is about me. This is my American masterpiece, and if it doesn't reveal my soul in all its complexity, then I am an utter failure. I know that sounds really egotistical, but that's the way. When you sit down, I was like, man,
But your
this has
name's on the
got to be
project.
great.
Yeah, it's your name's on the
Yeah,
project, though. I mean, like, my name's on a cover of a book. And so, like, I tell
yeah,
kids this all the time, and it's something I learned, you know, in high school, was that when your name's on something, everything after that is a reflection of you. So I get
exactly.
that. I totally get that, man, and how you want it to be perfect, right? And
Right.
some ways I know I have to kind of maybe get past that, you know, because, you
Yeah,
know, at the end of the day, some of the material, some of the illustrations, some of the way a book is made, like, there's one specific book that I know I'm thinking about right now that I hate, that's got my name on it, and it's because I didn't have a lot of say in what was going on, and I think they totally missed their mark, and it's almost embarrassing. But but
yeah,
I think that's, you know, I have to learn to let it go. And maybe, you know, in a production like this magnitude, I mean, now you're talking about actors, you're talking about other people, um that still dictate the outcome, and it's not just you in total control.
no, yeah, that's 100% true. And like I said, writing in the script, like I said, it became about executing the idea, even if I wasn't in love with it. And I think moving on, I've written something since then that I'm actually really proud of.
Awesome.
And it was, you're talking about like, oh man, and it's this other thing that I had the idea pop to me, and again, because I was insecure where I was at, I went to another writing partner. I was like, "You want to co-create this thing?" And again, I did all the heavy lifting, and her feedback was valuable. But now I'm at a point where I realize like I can write stories that aren't necessarily these internal, reflections of every component of me at this very, present moment in my life. But I can use these diverse characters and strange settings and locations and all these things to reflect not all of me at once, but just one simple idea. You know what I mean? So, like Pablo is about self-fulfillment, and this other project is about the idea of escape. There's been moments where people want to escape, whether it's escape their regret or escape to a better future, but that's the central term to that, and now to me, I think I'm getting a little bit better about finding that idea and then writing to the idea, as opposed to trying to like everything is some, cramming all of me into every whatever scene. And and you're 100% right, because again, I have a theater background, and I also I'm reminding myself, because you do learn this in theater. I was a director for a long time, and my mentor told me, whatever image you have in your head of your ideal production, abandon it immediately.
Yeah.
You do the best you can to cast, but then the actor is never going to perform exactly the way you have in their head. They may surprise you with some things that are better. They may not execute some things you want, but your goal is to fully realize them, and and that collaborative thing, I think, is paying off. At this point where that's the cool thing about writing for the screen, is that it's essentially a blueprint.
Right.
So you want to put as many elements as you can there, and there's certain techniques to doing that, but you can't control the way it's going to end up looking. Even the short film, which I directed, it's nothing what I had in my head.
But that's the beauty of it too, though, right? The outcome. I mean, you can plant the seed and have an idea of what's going to come out and what's going to flourish.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's what we don't expect that make it that much better, right? And again, speaking to the editing process, somebody else's input, in your case, actors, how they say a line, or maybe even riff off the cuff that you decide, wow, that's even better than what I wrote. Let's go with that one.
Or even like the environment, like the actual audio environment or the physical environment. It's like, you only got so much time, and it's that legendary scene in Midnight Cowboy where the taxi almost hits Rizzo, and he pounds,
right.
like, I'm walking here. That's that's an accident. Yeah. It's an improv. It's the legendary moment in that film. It's intriguing to me too, because coming back around to this idea of like learning. I think all storytellers learning how to craft this idea piece by piece, whether as this is what I love about you talking about your editor doing it line by line, word by word, syllable by syllable. Amazing. I had a mentor a long time ago explain to me why there were so many terrible Hamlets. He goes, like, everyone because everyone walks on and they're like, I'll be doing Hamlet. You're just like, you can, your eyes roll to the back of their head, and then they do the to be or not to be monologue, and it's just 3 minutes of just awful, just terrible, And the reason why I explained it to me, he goes, Hamlet has this whatever reputation of being this like complex character. He's got all these dynamics going on, and he's Shakespeare wrote him, so he's legendary and all this other stuff, right? And then he told me, he goes, a character's like a deck of cards. I always love this analogy. He goes, like, a character's like a deck of cards, and the first time we see them, you flip over the top card in the deck, and then they pet the cat. That's the second card. Then they whatever. And he goes, and only at the end of their journey, when you flip the last card over, do you like see the entire portrait of that person, and then you can go back, or that character, go like, wow,
Yeah,
that was a complex and dynamic character. Because what happens with too
absolutely.
many, yeah, he goes, what happens with too many performers is they come in and they try to play all that complexity in like 2 minutes. Or he goes, it's like the equivalent of just like flinging a deck of cards at you. There's nothing specific going on.
That's right.
Yeah, and I always love that analogy, and I try to remind myself that too. It's like, okay,
So, you know,
keep that.
as far as the sorry to interrupt you.
No way.
As far as the project goes, then, you know, right now we're at the stage where we're still fundraising for it. Where can we see it, and how can people help?
Oh yeah, appreciate that. Well, honestly, the reason why the short got made is because the feature won an award, the script.
Awesome.
And so there's a thing called the Blacklist. It's a collection of the best unproduced feature scripts. We didn't make the Blacklist. It's an annual list of about 10, and there's some legendary ones on there like Jojo Rabbit, stuff like that was on the list for like 9 years before someone decided to finally make it. So we competed on the Blacklist and we didn't make the list, but we did win
The gray
a
list.
competition they sponsored. Yeah, the gray list. Yeah, we're in the gray zone. Uh, no, I will say this did make me laugh. We entered this competition they sponsored, and the Blacklist tweeted out, and it was actually really cool. On their official account, they're like, El Pavo Bravo by Austin Savage and Roland Esparza is one of the best scripts we've read this month. And then directly underneath it, they tweeted out like about Shia LaBeouf's new project. So we were on like the same like tweet. I was like, oh, cool, we're running in
Okay.
Shia's circle now.
Same breath, huh?
Apparently apparently he was writing his script. That's just amazing. His script was about a white homosexual rapper from South Texas with a learning disability. So,
Oh man, he
I
cornered that market. God, but you've got the luchador market.
yeah,
Yeah.
we got the luchador musician. So, anyways, back we competed in this contest and we were one of 5 international winners. We were 4th in the United States and one from Australia, and we each actually got 15,000 from Hornitos to shoot the short.
Right on.
So that's what we did. And so we shot it here in El Paso, and we used all local talent. Like even the actors are El Paso natives. They work, out. So we had to fly them in from LA. That was actually a big part of our proposal, was using nothing but local talent in front of and behind, just in an attempt to kind of craft a narrative from this region that is not sepia toned, like literally and dripping in sepia tone, and about cartel wars and drug mules and bandoleros and something. So we made the short, which was a process. And now, honestly, it sounds crazy, but because we actually wanted to pay everyone locally professional rates, 15,000 goes pretty quick. It sounds bonkers, but you can do it. And so now we're just raising funds to send it out to film festivals. And
there'll
so
be
we've already
links
submitted
to all of this on the description below. There'll be links to all of this, so that people can click on and contribute. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's literally all our goal is. Like said in our proposal, we're just trying to like share our community, our little corner of the world with the rest of the world, especially because for so long, both because of the previous presidential administration pushing the narrative of like border crises and just bad like narrative. Like Sicario has my all-time favorite line. I don't know if you're familiar with the film but there's a scene where the Benicio del Toro character looks over at Juarez and he literally says, "There's Juarez. They call her the Beast." And I was dying. I was like, wow, really? And again, even like Breaking Bad, El Paso is the dark place. That's the place where Hank goes and gets PTSD, and it's just whatever. anyways, getting sidetracked. So yeah, just trying to share our corner of our community with the world on a new narrative. So, AFF, Austin Film Festival, Toronto, Aesthetica in Britain, trying to get it out to as many people as we can. There's certain components that I think appeal to it, the musicality of it. All the music was written by El Pasoans, or by people from our community, all original music. Sharing that stuff, and like I said, like the musicality of it, the bilingualism is kind of neat, because even though there's quite a bit of it in Spanish, you can still follow the narrative if you don't understand. We even had the discussion about subtitling, which was an interesting thing we had, and we decided. We debated about whether we would subtitle the entire thing or not at all. But we made the decision early on. We wrote the script fairly bilingual, there's quite a bit of Spanish in it. It's probably 60-40 English, but we made the decision early on that we would, like I said, subtitle both languages or neither, because we don't want to other Spanish. It's just one of those things that's one of those hills we decided to die on.
That's good. No, I think that's good. I mean, especially being from El Paso and both of us living out here and everything like that, that's just kind of the way it is. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're getting the feel. I mean, we don't have subtitles as we walk to the grocery store and have that 60-40, 80-20, no matter where you are. You could be in South El Paso downtown, and it might be 80-20 Spanish to English, and you can go to another part of town and be directly opposite, but nobody's got subtitles out here. So the fact that you captured that is great. And I think what you're also capturing, as you alluded to, is the talent that we have here, and talent that no longer lives here, but they're from here, so they understand and they get it. And I absolutely appreciate the fact that you're, to your earlier point, just sharing another angle in this very dynamic place on the map that we're so multifaceted, and we just cannot be described as a dark place or a narco area, but the culture, the history, and this is just one story, and that's what we are. We're storytellers. So Austin, I've taken up a lot of your time, but guys, if you want to check out this film, or at least the short, we'll link to all of this on the description here on YouTube, on this channel, and of course ways to donate. Obviously this is going to be a part one, because Austin and I, we could talk about everything. I mean, we didn't even talk about the Celtics, which
oh
that's
man,
another story altogether,
man.
I know that's another story.
That was a bad third quarter.
Third quarter, but hey, they split it. It's 1-1. We did what we do. Let's just move on. That's what I tell myself. Let's just move on.
Right. But
Mr. Savage, it's amazing knowing you. One of these days we're gonna work together. This is the start of maybe something that would be great. And I'm always a sounding board for you. Yeah, I'm always a sounding board for you, just like you're always a sounding board for me, my friend.
That sounds great. Yeah, I will say this, like, I remember when we first started kind of getting into these conversations, I think I gave you a copy of the Wind Up Bird Chronicle or something like that, or
you turned me on to
Murakami novel.
Haraki Murakami, man, and I can't put his stuff down. I just can't. I mean, I've got almost everything that this guy's written, and it's amazing. So yeah, that's part of my process, man. When I'm kind of feeling low and stuff, I got to break out with some Murakami and get into a dream kind of atmosphere and start settling myself down. It's just so good for my dopamine levels.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I think that's funny. I think even when I gave it to you, it's like, it's the only book I've ever read that made me want to climb down a well, and just like it was awesome. No, this is great. I was anytime you're ending it, I was like, oh man, I was having fun. I could go all day, but I know you have stuff to do, and I should probably go execute one idea today. So it was great.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much, Austin. I appreciate it, man. Love you, dude.
No problem. Love you too.
All right, man.
Talk to you later.